Hello, and in this IELTS speaking video, I'm going to look at the Part 2 topic, describe an activity you do when you are alone in your free time. You should say what the activity is, how often you do it, how you do it, where you do it, and explain why you like doing this activity. And then when I've finished the Part 2, I'll have a look at a couple of Part 3 questions connected with this topic. To be perfectly honest, I don't have a great deal of free time because I am snowed under with work at the moment. However, there is one thing I've been doing a lot recently, and that is learning English. Obviously, because I am taking the IELTS exam, I need to improve my English for this, so I have been studying every spare moment I have. Fortunately, it's not something I have to be in a specific location for. Thanks to the internet, there is a plethora of resources available, so I can do it anytime, any place. Depending where I am, I study in different ways. If I am at home, I will either study in my office or bedroom, and I'll focus on grammar or reading activities. If I'm out and about, then it's tricky to focus on intense things like grammar, so I tend to listen to podcasts or watch YouTube videos to help me with my listening skills. I tend to listen to music in English as well, so I'm kind of studying when I'm just listening to music and chilling out. Like I said, how I do it depends on where I am, so at home I'll use my computer, whereas when I'm travelling or waiting for something like a doctor's appointment, I'll use my phone. I try to do it as much as possible, but it's hard to estimate how much time I spend doing it each day. It's little and often. As previously mentioned, I am studying English for IELTS, but not just that. I am hoping to relocate to Canada, so being proficient in English is vital for when I move there. In addition to that, I actually enjoy learning the language, and some of my favourite bands are English and American, so when I'm listening to them, it doesn't feel like studying. I also enjoy watching English dramas, and although I watch them with subtitles, I feel that my vocabulary is improving. So let's have a look at some of the language in this topic. Obviously, I don't study English in my free time, but I picked this because it's something that hopefully all of you are doing, and it's something you can all talk about in the IELTS exam. Now, to be perfectly honest, is a very good way to start your IELTS Part 2 or any Part 3 questions. To be perfectly honest, I don't really know the answer to this question. So get used to, instead of just saying to be honest or honestly, to be perfectly honest. I'm using this one a lot because I think it's very useful for lots of topics. Even in Part 1 you could use it as well. I am snowed under with work, or I'm snowed under with my studies, and it means you have a lot of work to do, you have a lot of studies to do. It's idiomatic, it's very complex. Learn it, use it. I've used quite a lot of complex grammar in this answer, some present perfect continuous. I have been studying for something that started in the past but continues in the present. Try to learn some of these grammatical phrases and use them. Every spare moment, so it's like every moment that I'm not doing something else. Every spare moment. It's not something I have to be in a specific location, a specific place. Thanks to, because of, due to, you can use these in writing as well. A plethora of resources. A plethora is a very complex and quite formal way of saying a lot of. You can use it in IELTS writing as well. A plethora of resources, a lot of resources. Can do it anytime, any place. Just another way of saying all the time, anywhere. If I'm out and about, this just means if I'm outside of my home, if I'm out and about. It's tricky, it's difficult to focus on intense things, so quite serious, quite things that you need to concentrate on, intense things. I use tend to a lot because it impresses the IELTS examiner. I tend to listen, and it's easy. You just use tend to with a verb, and it means I usually listen. Podcasts are audio recordings, so not like a YouTube video where you have a picture and a recording. It's just a recording of somebody speaking. I'm kind of studying. We often say I'm kind of doing, I'm sort of doing, so kind of, sort of with an ing verb. And it means, you know, I'm not fully studying, but I'm kind of studying. We often say things like I kind of like, and it means I don't love it, but I kind of like it a bit. Chilling out, very good idiomatic English, to chill out, to relax. Often in IELTS speaking, you find yourself not repeating yourself, but saying something very similar to what you've already said. So you can say, like I said, or as previously mentioned. This is more formal, and this one can be used in IELTS writing. Like I said is more informal for speaking. Whereas, make sure you use this in writing as well when we're comparing two things and they're different. It's hard to estimate how much time I spend doing it each day. To estimate is to guess, so how much time do you spend doing it? I'm saying I don't know. It's little and often, meaning it might be 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. So I'm not saying I do it for 4 hours, which is not as complex. It's hard to estimate. It's hard to guess. It's hard to give a figure of how much time I spend doing it each day. Little and often, we use this a lot, like in exercise. Little and often is better than going for a 5-mile run. Being proficient in English means being very good in English, being an advanced speaker of English. Bands, this is another way of saying groups. Not a lot of language that you can easily remember for this topic. I think in here there's a lot of good grammar. Try to use present continuous, present perfect continuous, because it's an activity that you're doing regularly. So I've been doing this for 6 months, or I'm doing this because, so some present continuous. So grammar is vital in this topic. And like I said, just talk about studying English, because I think it's one of the easiest things to do. I mean, if you have something like playing football and you have a lot of vocabulary for it, then please do that. But you can use my answer and my ideas. So let's have a look now at some part 3 questions connected with this topic. So let's take a look at a couple of part 3 questions connected with this topic. So they might ask you, do young people in your country work longer hours now than in the past? Oh my goodness, 100% yes. But my parents would probably argue otherwise. So if you strongly agree with something that they're asking you, oh my goodness, this is an exclamation that we say. Some people say, oh my God, but if you're religious, people don't like that. Oh my goodness is a much politer way of saying it. And 100% yes, I'm saying absolutely, I agree with this. But my parents would probably argue otherwise. To argue otherwise means to argue the opposite. So my parents always say that they worked harder than when they were younger than people work now. In the past, many used to have 9-to-5 jobs, but now most people start at 7 and are not finished until 7 and then work at home in the evenings. So because we're talking about the past, remember to use used to. Many used to, so I can drop the people. Many used to. We talk about 9-to-5 jobs. These were office jobs in the past that started at 9, finished at 5. There are very few jobs like this now in my country, that people are working 12-hour days, 7 till 7, and then they're working at home in the evenings. I feel that mobile phones, email and the internet are largely to blame for this. We are always available and are expected to deal with things immediately. So I'm giving a reason why I feel this is the case, and it's these three things are largely to blame for this, are responsible for this. You can use this in IELTS writing. Something is largely to blame, so it's responsible for this thing. Let's take a look at another question connected with this topic. So they might ask you, what are the advantages and disadvantages of flexible work time? Well, firstly, one of the major benefits of flexible working is the flexibility to fit in appointments or school visits around your work. So a major benefit, instead of repeating, advantage, try to paraphrase. Flexibility, so you're showing you have flexibility in your use of language because you're not repeating flexible. To fit in, so to schedule appointments around your work or to go to these appointments during work time. For working mums and dads who have to do the school run, they can drop off and pick up their kids from school. Now in my country, the majority of mums now work, and we call them working mums. You can also call dads working dads. The majority of dads have always worked. But working mums and dads who have to do the school run. The school run is taking your children to school and then picking them up from school. We call it the school run. So this is a big problem. I have had this problem as a working mum, that often if I have a job starting at 9 but my children have to be at school at 9, how do I drop them off at school and get to work on time? So this is a major problem for any working parent. And then at the end of the day you need to pick them up. My children finish at 3:45. If I have a job in an office that finishes at 5, how can I pick them up? So it's a major issue. However, if you work in the service industry or in the healthcare sector, then flexible working often isn't possible because you need to work fixed hours or night shifts. So the service industry, these are things like hotels, restaurants where they're providing a service. The healthcare sector, these are hospitals, care workers. Then it's not possible because you need to work fixed hours. So fixed hours are you are told you start at one time and you finish at another. Fixed hours. Night shift is when you work during the night. So it's fine if you're working in an office and you can go in at 10 and then you can work through till 6 o'clock. But if you work in a hotel, people in the hotel need their breakfast, they need their rooms cleaning. Flexible working isn't really possible in areas like the service industry. So often you get essays on this kind of topic, so some useful ideas for you to think about if you've got this topic in IELTS Writing Task 2. Hope you found that useful, and thanks for watching.